Now, in the world of investing, the advantage tends to go to those with some type of edge. So today we're going to talk about how to use satellite data as that edge. Now, most people have heard about the parking lot example, essentially analysts counting cars at Walmart from satellite imagery as a proxy for foot traffic before earnings. Now, this is actually a pretty good example, but it barely scratches the surface of what we're able to do with satellite data. Now, this is the first in a series of tutorials on how investors and finance professionals can use satellite data in their research. We're going to get into ports, agricultural land, real estate development, energy infrastructure, and much more in upcoming tutorials. But today we're going to be starting with mining because it's one of the clearest examples of how Earth observation data translates directly into investment intelligence. So today I'm going to walk you through how to analyze a mine from space using satellite data within Nebulum. I'm going to show you how to do things like spot production activity, track expansion, detect tailings ponds, and get close to real-time intelligence on a mine, even when that mine is in the middle of the jungle on the other side of the planet. So let's start at one of the largest iron ore mines on Earth. This is Carajas in the heart of the Brazilian Amazon. And as you can see here from space, this is an incredibly striking image. If we just move over to the right here, what you'll see here is a little town. And if we move a little bit further over, we're actually going to see a dedicated airport just for this mine. And then if we scroll back over to the left here, you'll see these massive open pits, which are the size of small cities. Now, if we were to move just a bit over here, you'll also notice a rail line here. And if we were to follow this rail line out from the mine, we would see that it would run all the way to the coast, terminating right here. Now, this is roughly 900 kilometers of dedicated iron ore railway built for the single purpose of moving ore from the jungle to these ships. So yeah, I just think this is all pretty fascinating to study and look at. Okay, so let's jump back to the mine here. So if we were to just zoom out a little bit here, you'll see that this mine has all been carved out of this dense rainforest. Also, as a side note here, if you want to follow along, I'll be sure to provide the names and coordinates to everything that I mentioned in this video down in the description below. Now, the reason why I wanted to focus specifically on this mine today is because it's an extraordinary place to learn. And this is because this mine has had quite a long history. So we're going to be able to see some pretty clear signals, which are going to be really easy to read, even if you're brand new to using Earth observation data as an investing insights tool. Okay, so let's get into it. So here we're looking at Carajas on the base map. Now, as impressive as this base map looks, remember that base maps are not time-stamped. This map could be 6 months old, a year old, or perhaps even older. For just casual orientation, this is going to work perfect for us, but for investment intelligence, we're going to need something more. We're going to need something more accurate. So let's start layering. So what we'll do here is we'll click on layer 1 and we'll select this option right here for high resolution historical archive. Now, this is sort of like a base layer as well, but it will give us one clear advantage. It will allow us to search back in time. So once the map loads, I'll pull up a date from a few years back. For this demo, I'll select October 9th, 2019. So pick the same date if you want to follow along. And let's just now think about this layer as our baseline. It's a picture of the mine as it stood at a specific point in time. Now from here, everything that we find is going to be about measuring change. So first, let's talk about the first signal, which is looking at pit depth and expansion. So look at the open pits right here. You can read mining activity by counting the benches cut into the pit walls. These horizontal ledges right here, called berms, are carved out as the mine digs deeper. More berms means a deeper pit, and a deeper pit usually means more ore is being extracted. Now let's load a more recent date on layer 2. Now I'm just going to activate layer 2 by clicking on this button here, and then I'll select the same Earth intelligence layer as before. The difference now is going to be that I'm going to select a date closer to today. Again, to follow along, just do the same. Now, once layer 2 loads, let's toggle the swipe tool on by clicking on this switch right here. Now, let's drag between the two images and count berms. As you can see here, there is a clear difference between the older and newer layer data. Not only have the pit walls stepped down further, as you can clearly see here, but the mine's footprint has also pushed outwards, as you can see right here. So what we're looking at here is a signature of a productive mine. But what's even more interesting is what you see out here at the edges. Now notice these cleared patches in the historical image, areas where the forest had been removed but no pit had appeared yet. However, let's swipe forward, and when we do that, notice that some of these patches, for example right here, have become brand new pits. Now keep in mind that we can also see this disturbed land right here, which isn't developed yet either, but seems to be cleared and waiting. Now in the mining world, cleared ground adjacent to an active pit should almost never be interpreted as nothing. It's often an indicator of planned future development. So keep an eye out for things like disturbed ground, new road construction, or fresh land clearing, because these are the signatures of a mine that intends to grow. Okay, next let's talk about tailings ponds. Now not every mine produces tailings in the same way. So for example, this mine doesn't have large tailings ponds due to the type of mining operation. That said, we still do see ponds here which are likely holding waste from the mine. However, for copper, gold, and lithium operations especially, tailings ponds are one of the clearest indicators of production activity that you can find from space. An expanding tailings pond means the mine is processing ore. A stagnant one is a signal of a slowdown. Now I'm just going to pop over to another mine for a second to show you a more exaggerated example of this. So let's search for Bingham Canyon, which is in Utah, United States, and then we'll just zoom into the mine right here. Now this is probably one of the most famous mines on Earth from satellite. The pit itself is one of the largest man-made excavations in the world, and the tailings pond here is enormous. Now sometimes it's hard to tell from an optical image actually whether what you're looking at is water or not. Now within Nebulum, there's a simple fix for that. All you need to do is deactivate your current layer and then apply this water detection layer instead. Immediately you'll see the water bodies on the map light up very clearly. You can see the size of the ponds, which you can compare across states and watch them grow or shrink over time. And because the data layer that we just applied is time-stamped and recent, we're going to know exactly what we're looking at. Now next I want to talk about the issue of seeing through clouds, because there is a bit of a problem here. So anyone monitoring mines in cloudy regions like this jungle mine or mines in various places through the US and Canada, depending on the season, is going to run into cloud cover. Now the Amazon is one of the cloudiest places on Earth, and optical satellites can't see through clouds. Now some days or some weeks even, there's simply not going to be any usable optical imagery available. And this is when you're going to need to learn how to use radar or thermal imagery. So what we're going to do here is we're actually just going to activate this Sentinel-1 radar layer. And what's going to happen is that cloud cover is just going to become irrelevant. And that's because radar works by sending out a pulse of energy and then reading what bounces back, which means that it operates in any weather condition, and it can even operate in complete darkness. So what you're seeing on screen right now is called backscatter, and if you're using Earth observation data for investment insights, you must learn how to read radar data. So it works like this. Open water and smooth surfaces act sort of like a mirror. Radar is going to bounce away from the sensor, and very little of that information is going to return back. So tailings ponds appear almost black. That alone is useful. You can track pond locations in rough size regardless of what the weather is doing. Now for an even richer read, you can try the infrastructure detection radar layer. So I'll go and I'll activate that layer now. It's right here. Okay, now this layer was specifically built to identify human-made structures, anything with a hard 90-degree angle. Think processing plants, conveyor belts, large machinery, metal structures. All of these objects will bounce the radar back very strongly, and what will happen is you'll see these very bright white spots on the image here. Now bare ground and roads will tend to show up in blue, rough rock, pit walls, and rubble come back in pink, complex structures like vegetation canopy tends to show up in green. Again, I'm going to cover how radar works in another tutorial over on our YouTube channel, but hopefully this gives you a very basic understanding of how this works. Also, a word of caution here, and that's that colors in radar imagery aren't absolute. So a bright white signal usually means a building or a structure, but a steep rocky cliff face can produce the same signature. And that's what we're seeing right here in this mine. So the best approach is always to cross-reference what you're seeing in radar with your optical layers. Just use them together to get a clearer picture of what's actually going on. Now, when you combine all of this, pit expansion visible in optical, tailings pond growth tracked through water detection, near real-time production monitoring via radar regardless of cloud cover, You now have a very valuable multidimensional view of what is happening with this asset updated regularly from space. Now that is information that most people reading the quarterly report will never have. Now, everything we've done so far has been at one of the most well-documented mines on Earth. Carajás has decades of satellite history, clear visual signals, and a production record that you can cross-reference against. And that has made it the perfect classroom for us. But here's where things get interesting for investors. Now, the real edge isn't necessarily monitoring Behemoth Mine. So Vale, the owner of the mine we were looking at today, is a multi-billion-dollar company with hundreds of analysts covering it. The edge is in taking everything that you just learned and applying it somewhere where nobody is looking yet. So let's take everything that we've learned so far and apply it to a junior mining company. Now, junior mining companies are early-stage operators. They're exploring, developing, or just beginning to extract from a deposit. Now, they tend to be underfollowed, underanalyzed, and often operating in remote locations that are much more difficult to access or investigate through traditional research. So press releases for junior miners are also often very vague and say things like construction is on schedule, or the site looks promising, or investor presentations might say things like the production is on track. But as a potential investor, you probably want to know what the ground truth is. So now you can go and find out. So here's the workflow. A junior miner puts out an announcement, a new discovery, a construction update, a production target. You're going to take the location that they reference, whether it's a region, a set of coordinates, a named deposit, and then you're going to go and try to find it on a map. Sometimes the base map alone will tell you something, often it doesn't. So you're going to have to start layering. So let's use this Wheeler River mine in Saskatchewan, Canada as an example here. Now this is a fun one because this is actually quite hard to find. So in order to find this one, you can type in Wheeler River in the search bar here. But as you can see, we're brought to the middle of nowhere with no obvious visual indicators of a mine. Now I'm looking around here, but I'm really not seeing anything. Now the truth is that this mine might be so new that it doesn't exist on the base map layer yet. Now remember, with satellite data, that doesn't mean that we can't see it. It just means that we need to get creative. So one quick hack is to always look for straight lines and sharp geometry. They are telltale signs of human activity. We tend to build roads in straight lines and build shelters in square or rectangular shapes. As you can see here, nature tends not to default to straight lines or squares. Natural lines like these rivers tend to curve, and shapes like these lakes here also tend to have softer, more organic edges. Now I'm seeing a couple of lines here which look human-made, but I'm not seeing any infrastructure. So to quickly get around this, we can apply another Earth intelligence layer. I'm going to apply this urban infrastructure false color layer right here, and when we do that, we'll see these shapes pop out here indicating human building. And this is in part because cement and asphalt and roof tiling have really low moisture levels. It's going to be much lower moisture levels than everything else in the surrounding region, so these things are really going to pop out right now. Another approach here is we could jump back into our layer section here, and then let's select this radar vegetation detector. Now what this will do is it will look through clouds, and we will immediately see these straight lines, and this will give away the location of a potential mine. Now we can then zoom in and use other satellite layers to better see what's going on the ground right now. Also, as a side note here, this is also how governments can spot illegal mining activity, because humans tend to create very easy to spot signatures on land. Okay, so now we can save this location as an area of interest, and we can start monitoring it to see if the mine is expanding or sitting idle. We can do things like keep watch to see if there is anything to indicate active digging. Is there new road construction pushing toward new areas of the property? Are tailings ponds growing? Is there any machinery visible at the processing facility? Now, these are questions that satellite data can answer months before earnings reports do. And here's something else that you should build into your research process. You should go back and look at mining companies whose stock prices moved significantly up or down. And you should pull up the satellite history of their operations in the period before that move. Study what the mine looked like in the months leading up to the catalyst. Train your eye to recognize the difference between a mine that is accelerating and one that is stalling. That pattern recognition built up over time can become a big differentiator in the world of investing. And one more thing before we move on. So whenever you're looking at a new location and you're not sure what you're seeing, or you're not sure what layer to use to expose what you want to see, you can always use the built-in AI here. So just click on this button and then ask the AI what you're looking at, and it will analyze the image and tell you. Now, it won't replace your own judgment, but it will accelerate your own understanding considerably when you're working somewhere unfamiliar. So we've covered a lot of ground today, so I'm going to stop there. But keep in mind that what I've shown you here today is just the beginning of what's possible with Earth observation data in an investment context. Now, mines are just one asset class, but the same approach applies anywhere the physical world connects to financial performance. You can monitor port activity as a proxy for trade flows and commodity demand. You can watch Amazon fulfillment centers and retail parking lots as leading indicators of consumer activity. You can track construction progress at energy projects, monitor crop conditions ahead of agricultural earnings, or follow vessel traffic through key shipping lanes. Anywhere something physical is happening that eventually shows up in a financial statement, satellite data gives you a window into it before any reports even come out. The investors who understand this have an advantage over those who don't. Now, what I hope you take away from this today is not just a set of techniques, but a new way of thinking about research. The question is no longer just what does the company say is happening. The question now is also what does the ground actually show? Those two things are not always the same, and the difference between them is sometimes where the edge lives. Now, if you want to go deeper, I'll be covering other asset classes in future videos in this series: ports, agricultural land, energy infrastructure. Each one is going to have its own set of visual signals worth learning to read. Now, if you found this valuable, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it ensures that you're updated the next time that we upload a new video. And if you want to start doing this type of analysis yourself, a link to Nebulum can be found in the description below. Everything that I showed you today, the satellite layers, the date picker, the swipe tool, the radar views, all of it is available within the platform. So that's all I have for you. Thanks for stopping by today.